Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well and are having a flare-free day. Thanks so much for coming to my channel. I was reflecting a lot this morning around my own medical journey when it came to endometriosis, and I look back at the person I was more than 12 years ago on when I first had pain, and I experienced dismissive doctors and doctors that didn't believe my pain or had statements like, everything is normal because painful periods happen to people and you're just one of the unlucky ones. And I got a bit emotional this morning thinking back to it because that individual back then, we worked so hard to get to where we are. We advocated for ourselves, even with chronic fatigue and tiredness and like times when we just felt like we couldn't do it. We just kept putting one foot in front of the other to get on a path that worked for us for a little bit of time. If I'm being honest, what you see on social media isn't always black and white and isn't always the full story. My chronic illness journey had a good run for a little bit of time when I started to find a doctor that believed my pain finally after 11 years back then. And I moved to a new city a couple of years ago. And in that midst of moving and changing up things, I was matched with a doctor, which number one, I'm thankful that I found a doctor in the Canadian context. Finding a family doctor is extremely difficult and the wait lists are extremely long. And I just do feel fortunate that I did have a doctor in that midst of change with moving to a new city. But I didn't do reviews of that doctor. I didn't know who I was going to be matched with. It was like a Ontario system that was kind of made that it would match you with a doctor that became available in your area. And so when I was matched with this doctor, I was number one excited. I wanted consistency with my journey. I wanted someone to have my files and to walk me through the process and to advocate for my health with me. The doctor and I did not match. Like, the bedside manner was not there. They were pretty gruff and pretty angry a lot of the times. And I just was like taken aback because I, over the course of 2.5 years now, have felt as though my endometriosis journey has taken a hit. And I feel like there's a wall that I'm continuously hitting when I advocate for myself. And as an endo advocate and someone that sits on the Endo Network Canada board, I am such a huge advocate for yourself. Like, I want people to speak up for themselves and their health, but in the midst of sitting in a doctor's office while alone, your confidence takes a hit and you're like, I don't even know if I can advocate for myself in this environment because I'm not being met with understanding and patience and the ability and want to work together. I experienced medical gaslighting again in the past couple of years with this doctor. I was not believed for my pain. I was shocked that still in 2024, this is still a continuous narrative that we're facing in Canada. And I'm sure it's not the only country that is in this environment that medical gaslighting is still taking place. And on the other side of things, if you've been following, you know that I am a mom. And in my pregnancy journey with this doctor, there were also opportunities of medical gaslighting and blame put on myself for certain things when in reality I was just seeking out help. And I'll dive into that story later on in this video of what that looked like for me. But I'm on my own journey now to start fresh and to start new. And it's a scary place to be. But a scarier place to be for me was to be stuck with a doctor that continuously dismissed my pain, didn't believe my story, made me question my lived reality and my lived pain and experience. And that's a scary place for me, to stay with that doctor that didn't believe me. I need to listen to my own advice at times. And it's tiring and exhausting. And sometimes I don't want to advocate and I just want to sit and just not even think about my health at times because there's so many other things going on. But there comes a point where your health matters and you deserve answers for your pain. And I deserve answers for my pain and my experiences. And so today's video, I wanted to talk about, again, my own experience with medical gaslighting in the recent context of 2024 and outline subtle signs of medical gaslighting that might be missed or glossed over or may seem like is this medical gaslighting, or is this like a common occurrence with the medical system? And so I want to talk about subtle signs of medical gaslighting that you may see in your chronic illness journey. Again, with my journey, I am seeking out a different option. I am on a wait list for a new doctor, but it's needed for me to continue getting answers for my health. So number one, you're not alone if you are in the same boat as me. So what is gaslighting more generally? I think in pop culture and society, we hear of this term, oh, I'm being gaslit, or there's gaslighting, or they're gaslighting me. And you're like, I don't even know what that means, but okay. Gaslighting more generally is an individual making someone else feel as though their lived experiences, their pain, or their lived reality is not true. It is a form of emotional and psychological manipulation. The goal of that individual is to make the other feel victimized, powerless, make them feel confused or anxious, or even dependent on that manipulator. You might be wondering where the term gaslit or gaslighting came from. Back in the day, there was a play in 1938 called Gaslight, and it was written by Patrick Hamilton. The play ended up becoming a film in the 1940s. The story revolves around a husband who uses tactics to make his wife question her own lived reality and make her question her own sanity. One tactic that the husband uses to make her question her lived experiences and to manipulate her in the situation is to dim gas lights in the house. She questions this to the husband, saying the lights look a little bit different, they're flickering, and he says, "It's all in your head, honey. Nothing's going on, nothing's different, you're going crazy, like the gas lights are fine, what's going on with you?" Over time, and his consistent messaging that it's not real, it's all in your head, it's not happening, made her over time question herself, made her doubt herself, and made her doubt her own perception of her lived reality. The play was so successful that the term gaslight or gaslighting was used over time and in the current day. Today, I'll be diving into medical gaslighting more specifically, but the term gaslighting, as we know, holds weight, and it is heavy, and it is applied to different environments and circumstances like relationships, work, colleague relationships, institutionalized contexts. So yes, gaslighting can take place in different avenues and different areas of life, but I don't want to remove the weight of it and the severity that it holds in different contexts. So today is just about medical gaslighting, but if you are experiencing it in another avenue, know that I believe you, I believe your pain, I believe your experience and your voice, and I don't want to excuse that experience if it's not talked about today. Medical gaslighting is when someone's pain, experience, or lived reality is questioned by a medical provider. It happens when healthcare professionals minimize, dismiss, or invalidate someone's lived experiences, pain, or symptoms. It can cause a patient to feel victimized and make them question their own perception of pain, of, am I feeling this much pain? Or I guess it's not that big of a deal if it's a normal occurrence. Medical gaslighting can also lead to delays in diagnosis, and this is very true with those with chronic conditions or chronic illnesses or perception of invisible diseases. Endometriosis is one where we see a lot of delays to diagnosis because the patient's pain and lived reality is questioned or deemed to be normal. So if you hear painful periods are normal, you're one of the unlucky ones, or it's all in your head, or it's very common to have painful periods, it's just a common occurrence, no need to do further testing. These are signs of medical gaslighting that occur and cause delays to diagnosis because we as the patient are coming in to believe that medical provider. We're there to say, you're the professional here, I trust what you're saying, I guess everything is okay, when in reality, it's not, and there's something deeper that's causing symptoms or pain that needs to be investigated further. Oftentimes, patients are made to feel like it's all in their head, or that their pain or perception of reality is due to stress, anxiety, or depression, and not actually related to the underlying condition that is causing these symptoms to come forward. Statements like, it's all in your head, or you're just stressed, or you're going through a lot right now, this could be causing it, are signs of subtle medical gaslighting. Medical gaslighting is particularly common among women, non-binary individuals, folks from the LGBTQ+ community, as well as individuals from marginalized communities, further exacerbating healthcare disparities and unequal access to healthcare and outcomes. Subtle signs of medical gaslighting to look out for include dismissive language. Again, phrases like, it's all in your head, you're stressed, nothing to worry about here. All statements that are used to downplay the patient's lived perception and actual pain. Minimizing symptoms, that's normal, or we see that all the time, or that's super common. These are statements that are made to subtly suggest to the patient that, again, it's all in your head, nothing to worry about. They're minimizing your symptoms to make you feel like maybe I shouldn't have come in today. Maybe that's something that I shouldn't have worried about in the first place, when in reality, this is your healthcare journey. This is your opportunity to ask questions and to get answers. And if your pain is minimized, it can make you again question your lived experience and make you question whether you're going to go into a doctor's office again to ask about it, because you're like, it was kind of minimized before, it wasn't a big deal, so it's probably not again if it keeps coming forward. Inconsistent information. You may receive conflicting explanations around the pain that you're experiencing, but are often told not to worry about it. Subtle signs of medical gaslighting also include being labeled as difficult. If you question your treatment options or you question a statement that's made in a consultation with your medical provider, oftentimes there's a underlying statement of, oh, you're making this difficult, or that's more work for me, or even statements like, you've been in a lot lately, is a subtle way to outline that you're making my life a little bit more challenging to get answers for you, when in fact this is again your journey, you're the patient, you deserve answers for your body and your health. Refusing to order tests for you or to refer you to a specialist with symptoms that are underlying for a condition. You are entitled to ask for a second opinion when it comes to your health, and you should never be met with, you're not allowed to see anybody else, or I'm not referring you to somebody else. Withholding extreme side effects from medications. If you're talking with a medical provider and they provide you with a medication and say, read the side effects at home, when there's a severe side effect that might take place the moment you start taking that medication, that is a sign of medical gaslighting. If you ask questions too with that doctor and say, hey, you're providing me with this medication, like what are some side effects? And they say, read them at home. That's not proper healthcare. That's not proper information. You are allowed to take up time with your own medical consultation. This is your appointment. You are allowed to ask questions. And so if you're dismissed by saying, read them at home, I have no time for this, that's a sign of medical gaslighting that can take place. Shifting responsibility. So the medical provider is blaming the patient for not getting better or not improving, even if you are following the steps and taking the medication that was prescribed to you. Oftentimes this is seen as suggesting that you're not following recommendations when you are. I hate to say it, but this was my lived experience recently. I did give birth and I did suffer with anxiety and depression that came forward. I am going to get emotional about this because it's so sad, but I thought that I could do it on my own. After giving birth, I thought that what I was feeling mentally was stress or just getting into a new chapter, and I was feeling levels of anxiety and depression, and I realized and recognized that it was anxiety and depression early on because I had suffered with it in the past. So again, more susceptible to anxiety and depression in major life changes. Giving birth was one of them. And so I waited because I wanted to see if I could do it on my own and see if I could get through it, see if it was a phase, see if I could get through it without having to go on medication too. Like I just wanted to see if I could do it. And that's like something that I did personally. I don't know if any others are the same, but you feel like you're strong, you feel like you're capable, you feel like you can do it. And part of my past too was like I second guessed the medical system with endo. So I was like nervous to go again to say like, is it complaining about my mental health when I have so much going for me, and like, is it really anxiety and depression? Like I don't want to waste their time. So I was already anxious and already wasting time to get answers for my health when I knew something was off. I knew my own body and I knew my pain and I knew that my mental health was just not there. And so I waited 6 months, and that might seem like a long time, but for me, I was just lost in newborn reality. I feel like time flew by. I was like, every day was moving fast and slow at the same time. So when I finally said like, I need help and I need to go talk to this doctor, it was 6 months that had passed. So I went and had an appointment, and I went in, and the first thing that he says when he walks in was, why are you here? When I called the office originally to book the appointment, I had outlined, we have to say a kind of a statement of why are you coming in today, or why do you want to see the doctor ahead of going in? And I said, it's just discussing mental health associated with postpartum. So it should have been outlined to him that this is what I was coming in for, but it was a jarring statement already when I was met with, why are you here? And I'm like, ooh, like, should I be here? Should I have made this decision? Like, am I wasting their time? And I just said, I am experiencing, and I started to cry. I was like, I'm starting to experience like scary emotions postpartum. And I was met with, have you told your OBGYN? And I was like, they're no longer a part of my journey. Like, I'm no longer a patient of them. Like they were there for my journey for pregnancy, and I'm not a patient of them anymore. Like you are my family doctor. And so I said, they're not involved anymore. Like, and they're like, well, they should be. Like, why aren't you meeting with them? And why did it wait so long? Like, why didn't you come to me earlier? Why did you feel like you could do this on your own? And it was like, oh my God, like I had made a terrible mistake. Like, this is not something that like a person generally, but postpartum, to be met with saying, I have anxiety and depression, and then you feel lower in that appointment. Like, if someone is not feeling well and you have that blown at you and then you leave feeling even lower, I can only imagine how that toll could take on somebody. And for me, I had the support of Nick and my family, but if you're dealing with it on your own, to live through that is like disgusting. Like, I can only imagine how people feel and just like more isolated, more alone, more blame on themselves, and like the catastrophic things that could take place following. Like, you just second guess yourself and your health, and you just want help and answers. And so it was like a very awful bedside manner. It was a very awful appointment. I felt like, I just said, like, I thought I could do it on my own, and like time has flown by so much, and I was put on like medication, and that's like openness there, and I needed that help at the time. But I wasn't provided any additional resources or like, here's a therapist that I recommend. And even asking, I was like, if there's a list of therapists, and he's like, go ask the front desk, she'll give you a list. It's like, he's putting the blame off of him. Like, it wasn't even like him finding this information. It was like, my EA will help you. And I was like, so that was a form of medical gaslighting that I experienced. And it wasn't necessarily related to my chronic illness journey, but it was like, we know that postpartum depression and anxiety and the baby blues, post-baby blues, are like a huge thing in life. We hear about this all the time. But even in 2024, like the past year, I was met with that. And I'm like, I'm sad. Like, it's just like, it shouldn't be happening. And I can only imagine like something we know so much about, like postpartum depression, and is talked about so often. Now put it in the context of a chronic condition or invisible illness that like nobody knows about, like endometriosis. The amount of research and like information out there is coming a long way, and we've come a long way with it, but it's still so misunderstood and underdiagnosed that when you're coming forward to a doctor with your own claim of symptoms and pain and discomfort, and you're met with like, it's all in your head, I can only imagine, like, it's even worse for chronic conditions that are seemingly invisible to get answers and support, and are often met with medical gaslighting experiences. Another example of subtle medical gaslighting is the let's see and wait approach. Experiences like symptoms should improve over time. That might be the case for certain things, like if you have the flu or you have a cough, it could be like, oh, sometimes these can last a little bit. If it continues, come and see me. But if there's a dismissive approach of let's wait and see when you've had chronic debilitating pain for years and years and years, or months and months and months, or weeks and weeks and weeks, like, that is something that needs to gain support for and shouldn't be dismissed of let's wait and see if this gets better. You're young and healthy, so you have nothing to worry about. It kind of puts like an age perspective on things, even when you have the pains, you have the symptoms, you have everything on paper that leads to that condition or suspected diagnosis, but you're young and healthy, so that can't be it. That could be an overly reassuring statement that is a subtle sign of medical gaslighting. You're not getting the answers and the proper treatment for underlying symptoms for a potential condition. Body language and tone. Again, lived through this experience. If you're met with eye rolls, angry tones, dismissive tone, it suggests that you as the patient are not being taken seriously from the doctor, and you deserve answers, you deserve support, you deserve an understanding ear. Selective listening, so only listening to parts of your story or experience and glossing over or dismissing other parts of your story that lead to a full picture of what's going on. Using medical jargon to confuse. Medical terminology is complicated at the best of times, and even conditions like endometriosis, it's a huge term and you're like, what is that? But sometimes overly using medical terminology to confuse the patient, feel uninformed, or even incapable of understanding their own condition or symptoms that are going on. It can often lead patients to leave that appointment feeling more confused and more like, I need to go back to that doctor to keep seeing them. It's a manipulative tactic that can be used to say, they're gonna have to come back to me for answers. And so it's like keeping that relationship there even though it's toxic and manipulative. What can medical gaslighting sound like in certain circumstances? You don't have certain symptoms, so it can't be that condition. When it comes to the endometriosis context, adenomyosis or PCOS, it could be painful periods are normal, or you're one of the unlucky ones that have painful periods. It's common. The pain you're experiencing isn't real. That's like an overtly medical gaslighting experience. You are missing one symptom of the condition, so it can't be that. Again, that was my experience like years and years and years ago at the beginning of my endo journey. I brought forward symptoms that I was experiencing, and I said, could it be endometriosis? Because university days, I was like procrastinating from doing work and I was researching my own health, and up popped this thing called endometriosis. And I had all the symptoms, but I was missing what was at the time pain outside of the time of my period, which I did have, but I was associating it with like going for long runs or doing an intense spin class. Like I was having leg pain, but I didn't associate it with my period symptoms because again, I was like, well, that can't be period related because it's not my period. So during the conversation with the doctor, I said, could it be endo? I'm having all of these kind of things. And they said, you're missing that symptom. So like, it's very unlikely that it's endo, even though I had like the rest of the list there. So that's a sign of, medical gaslighting that might be heard. You are a certain race and that illness or disease impacts the other race, so it's unlikely that you have it, even though you have the symptoms that are leading to suspected diagnosis of that condition. Everything is fine on imaging. This is an interesting one because with endometriosis, ultrasounds and imaging techniques are often used. Sometimes endo can be picked up on imaging, which is great, but sometimes it can hide behind structures and other tissues and can be difficult to see on imaging because it's just really good at hide and seek. So a negative imaging result for endometriosis more specifically doesn't mean that you don't have endo. It just means that the disease was hard to find on imaging or pick up. So for medical gaslighting experiences is if you hear imaging was all fine and nothing came back abnormal, but you still have those pains and discomfort, it is really important to go find a second opinion or be referred to a specialist if you do receive that specialist referral from them. But again, you do deserve answers for your pain. So a negative imaging test may not be the whole story. I'd be curious to hear down below if you've experienced medical gaslighting and the terms and terminology that you experienced either overtly, like it was like blatantly medical gaslighting, or subtly of was that medical gaslighting, and looking back it was a potential manipulative tactic. I want to do a disclaimer here that number one, if you are experiencing any new, changing, or recurring symptoms, it's important to go talk to your doctor. But if you are face-to-face with a doctor that is constantly making you second-guess yourself, making you second-guess your pain, making you feel like your voice doesn't matter, making you feel like your health doesn't matter, your experiences don't matter, you are so deserving of a second opinion. You are so deserving of another doctor in your journey to help you through it. I know it's a scary thing to go through when you're trying to find a new doctor for yourself, and I'm in the same boat with you, okay? So you're not alone. 2024, it's all about finding new doctors for ourselves if they're not working out, but it is not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on you. You are going, as a patient, to gain answers for your health, and when you're met with something that is not supportive or not conducive to your health journey, please, from the bottom of my heart, don't stay. You're so deserving of answers, and there is a medical provider and doctor out there that will believe you. And I want to do a caveat there too and like outline that the medical gaslighting situation, yes, doctors out there that still do it, but there are so many good medical doctors and nurses and technicians and healthcare providers in the system that are there to support you. And there's so many good people, and I've met them along my journey and with advocating, and I see them and they're there at the front lines like trying to make change. So this video isn't about those people. If anything, those people, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for like advocating for the patient and helping them through the medical system and navigating it with them and being there to answer and be patient and gentle. Like, you exist, and I'm so thankful for you, because without you, it wouldn't be possible for us patients who live with pain and discomfort and fatigue to do it on our own. And so this video is obviously not about those doctors, and thank you from the bottom of my heart to those people that help along the way. So with that, I hope this video has been helpful and a little eye-opening for my own journey of what I'm going through, but you are not alone. I'm with you 100% of the way, and I'm so incredibly proud of each and every one of you. I cannot wait to talk to you on the next video.